Welcome to the channel. This is Reliable Rudy. Just give me a moment before we get this underway. Before we go into any market analysis, you guys know I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Simply just sharing my opinion. I believe in the short run, the stock market is just a big voting machine. I have a vote, someone else has a vote, the person next to him has a vote as well. In the long run, it is a weighing machine. I believe that equity, ETFs, indexes, they will trade near their intrinsic value, and I'm a firm believer of that. But like I said, I'm just sharing my opinion, so take it for what it's worth and implement it in your own way. So, uh, starting off, we just have the TQ here. We're still in our same entry. If you missed Friday's live stream, you know that's alright. Nothing wrong with that. But we did make a couple moves in this. But before we go into any of that, I'm going to pull over the Twitter account and we're going to go over the posted notes for today. And of course, you know, when you're talking about short-term volatility, nobody's going to be perfect. Everything that somebody does, I don't care how good of a trader you are, nobody in the stock market is going to be perfect on a given day. So posting these notes ahead of time, there could be something that happens that drastically changes over the course of a short period of time, a news drop or a huge volume increase, whatever it may be. So keep that in mind, but we're going to go over the sticky notes today. So PLTR, I said potential trade earnings were all right in quotes right there. I really didn't think there was anything special with them. Yeah, they had some good growth, but there is still some negatives that I could point out that are negatives to me. That doesn't mean that it's going to negatively affect the stock price. But they for damn sure weren't as good as what people were making them seem. Yeah, they put up a good quarter, a couple quarters in a row of profitability. Okay. I still think there is going to be a lot of bulls and shorts, bulls and bears that are gonna battle it out over the next couple weeks, and who knows what happens in that period of time. But I'll leave it at that. I did think that it was an interesting chart setup. Support at 910 to 875 could give an entry. I wouldn't punch long and let it sit. And what I mean by let it sit is, you make your entry and it's there. You're gonna hold it for the rest of the time. If you want to do that, more power to you. To me, it's just not the type of setup that I would do that for. And I'd say your first downside risk is probably 775 to 750. Will it catch a bid before that? I don't know. So let's go take a look at um, PLTR. Oops. Okay, so we have PLTR pulled up right here. Now on the sticky note, I said 910 to 975. Now let's go find out why I was looking at that area. One, that 910, I just gave it a few pennies above this previous high, but all I simply did was come over here and mark this previous high. That's also where we gap up over on the earnings day. You can see here is the earnings, but another reason why I like this is a lot of times the volume is going to be a big teller. And when you have and a lot of times you'll see increased volume on earnings days, but when I see three nice green candles like that, and then also a fresh positive break, especially when that positive break comes from the oversold area, anybody who's trapped in short right here has got to cover, and that's partially, in my opinion, why you get sort of this volume increase. Is anybody that's covering their position that's adding direct liquidity to the book. So a nice move to the upside. Now, if I'm looking at this as a bull flag, where these nice three candles is my pull, where you get one, two, three, I'm very focused on the next 3 days. Now, the big teller in these 2 days as it dropped is the decreasing volume. That is very intriguing to me, especially when I can look to the left of my chart and find some levels that I can identify. And so when you get decreasing volume like this, yes, it is a red candle, but that's why I'm looking for a pullback. So the next line that I have marked right here is around this 890, and that's simply the top wick of this green candle. And then anything under that, I'm just looking at as level. So I have this marked, which is 875, which is what I say on the sticky note. 875, I'm really looking for that in that range. This could easily give you an entry. Now, obviously, the market had a little bit to do with this move today, as the NQ caught some resistance right off the beginning. Uh, but in Palantir in particularly, you get the gap down, and it shows you right away off that opening candle that this has the strength, and it fills that gap. Now, you do get this red engulfing candle, so maybe you don't test 9 flat, but now let's say you didn't try it at this 9 flat or 910. If you were looking for an entry, as soon as it takes out this wick right there, you have the increased volume. Now there's your opening candle. Now this is a lot of selling pressure that came in. Now it'd be very hard to just go out and say, and I'm sure a lot of tickers out there were volatile to the downside early in the day. But just look at the follow through that this had. If you were looking at this from the daily candle and said, hey, I'm just looking to trade this previous high, that's your volume that came in. Now for this bull flag continuation to really pan out, I want to see it exceed this top, because anybody short off of these two candles right here is then out of the money. So you don't really know for certain right now. Now for all I know, this trades back down and it gives you another opportunity, and maybe the second time it does that, it doesn't give you the long opportunity. Oh wow, look at that. OG Lobster. Appreciate you for tuning in. You're gonna get a show right here. But yeah, Palantir, that was the first on the sticky note right there. Potential trade. Like I said, I didn't like the earnings report. I didn't think they were all that great, but the trade setup was there for a long. So I'm gonna try and move a little bit quicker now that you're in here. And H&H Trader coming in with all kinds of tickers to go over. So I will go a little bit quicker through this. Second name, BTI, weak name to watch. Relative strength, negative 185. I think it's a value play. I think low 30s is pretty solid support, solid dividend with growth in revenue, EPS, solid margins, and you're getting the dividend growth. Just be careful with size anytime you're dealing with a weak name. Uh, so let's go take a look at BTI. Now it gives you the gap up, and it doesn't have the weakness to trade down to this gap. So, for all I know, sometime during this week, I'm really looking for this 33.71 uh, to potentially come down and fill this gap. But I mean, that's another thing you can see on this daily. Negative 160 strength. So catching a little bit of resistance, but I also are catching a little bit of a bid. But I would also be very interested if it catches enough of a bid to this gap fill. If somebody wants to short this name, they're going to be very interested off this gap fill where you have a downtrend that's going to have to fight through. You have a couple of EMAs that you got to fight through, and you also have this previous low where you could mark that and mark this, where this is all meeting into this level. So if somebody really wants to short this name, it's going to have to fight through this level. So that could be your catalyst for continued downside pressure, where I would then just look towards the left of my chart where I like the low 30s. Let's start with this $32 gap. If it gets down there, how does it act? Just kind of keep it on monitored. But I do like the value on this name. We didn't make any plays with BTI today. The other one, it's Monday. NQ looks strong. As you know, Friday uh, was a very strong day, and the beginning of Friday was a lot of weakness into the market, and a lot of people were probably scared to punch long. But it ended strong, as Fridays have been doing lately. And all I simply am stating here is the NQ strong. Open price is opening into resistance. I will go show you that. Let it settle. Long looks good. Find strength. If you're looking for alternative ETFs and you don't like the NQ, I simply just put a few ETFs here. We won't go over all of those, but I'll just use the TQ because that's what I'm sitting in at the moment. So right off the open, now why is this resistance? I'm going to show you the opening candle. This is your resistance right here. If I go to an hour chart, it may show it a little bit better. Here's your first candle. Now you open. Now why is it resistance? If you take a fib tool It's just in a retracement zone is the way that I look at it. So with it opening here, is there going to be any profit taking? So you can see off the open, you trade down, and to me, this is where it starts the uptrend. It's not really an uptrend that I have, but the bigger picture is I'm saying that this is trading in a channel right here. Why is the NQ strong? You go over to a daily chart. Well, one, last week set a new high. Two, you set a close above your level. Three, you're getting the gap up. If anybody's looking to buy this name, you're going to start with gap fill buyers, and then you have clear levels where it's trading in the channel. So I like the long for the day, but all in all, we did not have any reloads. We did take a profit trim off 28.90. We let it fold in. We didn't panic on anything. Had it came down to the bottom end of my channel, I would have been a lot more interested. But I did have this previous low marked, so if I really wanted to be aggressive, I could have added here. Uh, the only reason why I didn't is because it had this increasing red volume. I just thought the red volume was too much, but I still believed in the long. I just wanted it down here further. Now you can see we had some good follow through. We had some outs all the ways up here. No reloads. If this wants to trade down here later on in the week, I'm definitely going to be looking to reload this. So that was the TQ or the NASDAQ, and then natural gas uh, is worth keeping an eye on in my opinion. And I'll go to the natural gas futures right here, the NG1. And simply why it's on radar is it's getting a fresh positive break, and Friday it flirted with this neckline break. And it's early signs of an ascending channel, which is what I state on the sticky note. Early signs of ascending channel, I spelled it wrong. It's something to laugh about, but it's an ascending channel. It held two flat support very well. Relative strength's positive. Any entry I take, I'm thinking long on this name. So I really want to make sure that I get the entry that I want. So if it can set a closing candle with it looking like a really good green engulfing candle right here, I would be looking for a pullback into the middle of this green move. And more in particular, I'd be very interested off this previous high, with it being positive 36 strength now. So that's all I'm looking at with the NQ. I did not buy anything into this, and the ETF that I use is Boyle. It's a little bit more volatile, a little bit more leverage, but you have that same look where you're kind of breaking over top of this neckline right here. So if this wants to pull back, here's my gap fill around 3. I want to see how it acts at this 3 if it gives me that pullback in the middle of this green move. Now you can see we do have some nice volume increase, but you are still negative on Boyle. So that is also part of the reason why we didn't add to this at all today. Moving along, next sticky note, CTSH, we did make a buy-in on this, and God, I just couldn't get the entry that I wanted, and we ended up forcing in a little bit higher. But we did get a nice move. Now, why do I like this name? One, I thought the earnings were everything that I'm looking for. They're buying back shares, solid margins, solid growth, and the chart setup is also there because you have a nice uptrend. Starting from over here, you have a nice uptrend. Now, this could be also a sign of some sort of ascending channel. Whether that's drawn right or not, this is what I'm panning for. If this can give me the move up to here, I will be all for taking profits up to the top end of this. Uh, but it could easily go against me and retrace down to the earnings gap. But relative strength of 116, they got a dividend coming up, so maybe some resistance into the dividend. Very possible. But as long as it opened, now I said above 6150, keep an eye on it. I'm looking to add strengths plus 86. The 200 days right around that 6150, and it continues to hold that level, and it has a nice uptrend to fall back to if needed. So if you take an entry and it cracks that 200 day and you get some resistance, I'm looking to hold this until it breaks this uptrend. So that's my play with it. Now let's go talk about the entry real quick. It gives you the gap up. Now I was sitting there. I put on the bid at 61.70. Doesn't give me the retrace down to the gap. Even if I was gonna put it a little higher than that gap, I probably would have went 61.75, and I wouldn't have got the fill anyways. So then it showed me the move, and all I did, I upped it up to 62. Retraces, doesn't fill, doesn't fill, doesn't fill, doesn't fill. And when it didn't fill on this one, this is when I was like, okay, we're gonna have to mark it into this. So all I did is I marked the top of this wick, and as soon as it took out that price, all I did was market order in. Now I could have waited for this candle, got a little few better cents, but I was okay with the ad that I had, and this had some good follow through, so I was okay. And it showed me that it could keep strength, set a new high, and also on this little retracement, it doesn't have the weakness to fall back to the previous high. So I like the way this is looking, and I'm looking to hold this for as long as it wants to keep running. So that was CTSH. BABA earnings on Thursday, a lot of resistance in the upper 80s, strength getting close, negative 23. Support at 80 held up. It does have a pretty good support level, so we can go talk about BABA real quick because it was pretty strong on the day. Now you can see the 15-minute. Here's your upper 80s. It rejects, doesn't have the weakness to get down to the gap. I may have been a buyer here. Last week I was looking for this gap fill and 84 flat, which this was a neckline that it gapped over. Never gave me the retrace to 84, which is alright. But yeah, I was looking to add to this name, didn't get any ads, which kind of sucks, but I am going to be very interested in looking at the earnings report for BABA later on in the week. Moving forward, I would say it is a nice green engulfing candle through that high right there, and it's holding that previous high. So this looks pretty good for continuation, and more importantly, it showed that it can fill this gap. Retraced, all it did was retrace to the previous high right here, and getting some continuation on that. Looking at the daily chart, your strength getting closer. So at the time of the sticky note, it was negative 23. Now we're at negative 17, but this is a pretty solid look. If it can fight through and set a close like this, I think it's going to be bullish going into the earnings report. But you do have some resistance in those upper 80s and also in the low 90s, where I truly think the better move. Now here's your 80 support that holds. It could have easily just flat bottom broke on this, where okay, we have some gaps over here in the mid 70s. But the true breakout for this name is going to be 105. If it can show it can get over 105, I think that this name is a pretty solid setup because you're getting sort of an inverse head and shoulders look right there. So if it can break 105, I think it'll go test 120s. And if it can break over 120s, man, I don't want to be giving price targets that are unreasonable, but this 161 gap is pretty juicy. So I'll leave BABA at that. Stay away, SoFi. This is where I said that, nobody's going to be perfect in the stock market. To me, it's a lot higher. Now I say, yes, it's cheaper. We talked about SoFi last week up at 550, where I said the same exact thing. Stay away. Yes, it's cheaper than 550 now. Yes, it has pretty solid support at 450. Still think it's a short. Relative strength negative 215. Share dilution is a killer. Let it settle. Eventually that relative strength is going to go positive, and you're going to have an opportunity to get an entry, whether that entry is higher or lower. I believe you'll be able to get the entry that you want. So we can go over SoFi real quick, where it gives you the gap down. Now here's your relative strength. Still only negative 213. Now you'll see it better on a 15-minute chart. Now I'll show you the 250 support, where it has this little conjunction where we set this double bottom at 425, but you have this gap fill at 261, got filled. So this is why I was kind of insinuating that 450, that whole quarter, it does hold pretty good. Had you just bought 450, you'd be sitting pretty good on this name. But all in all, you'll see it better on this 15-minute chart, where it still has a downtrend. It still has a gap up at $5 that it has to get to. Who knows? For all I know, this name gets another gap down tomorrow and the shorts regain control. As you can see, still relatively weak even on the 15-minute chart at negative 27. So I don't think that the battle is over between the Bears and the Bulls. So I would just say, uh, SoFi student loans opening next month, I'm thinking long. If you're thinking long, go ahead and punch long. But to me, I'm waiting for relative strength on this name. I traded this name very good. I actually had a 480 cost average, and we exited the position north of 7. So I felt I did pretty good with the name. So for me to be holding this name up at 470 and still saying that it looks like a short down here. That's just me. To me, that's just I'm looking at it from a technical standpoint as it's a weak name. Uh, and they do have a lot of share dilution that they have to work with as well. So even if on a chart basis, it may look like there's good support here. To me, adding more shares to the liquidity is going to drive this name down. That's my thoughts on it. So I'll go show you more so what I'm talking about right here. So I just pulled up simple financial statement and just the shares outstanding where you have continued share dilution quarter after quarter and on an annual basis 71% share dilution in the year 2022. For me to want to punch long on something, uh, I 71% share dilution is not what I'm looking for. That's just me personally. That doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. Uh, and I'm sure they have some catalysts. They have some good growth as well. But for me, that's just not what I'm interested in. So I'll go pull this back over here. So going back over to the sticky note, PayPal, I said let it keep dropping. Please, I want it to keep dropping. Just let it go down as far as it wants to go. I thought the earnings report was really good. They were buying back shares. They had a slight decrease in margins. They had decent revenue growth. They increased their forecast for 2023, and there's some worries that they're losing market share. Until that day comes, okay. But from a financial standpoint, they're doing everything that I like seeing. And to me, I don't want to say that they're the exact same. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of Meta and obviously different scenarios. But Meta was increasing their capex, Meta was buying back shares, Meta had pretty solid margins, and Meta also had a competitive advantage. I think there's a lot of similarities there. But from a chart perspective, obviously PayPal is just a weak name, is all I see in it. So it is up a little bit today, about a 0.5%. But you can see relatively weak name, negative 344. So by all means, let this keep dropping. Let it keep dropping. And if it somehow gets down into these 40s, I think this is some really solid support for it to fall down to. Under 50, I will be a buyer. You best believe that. But more in particular, if it were to fill this gap for some reason, I will buy that as well. So I think this is more of a name to think long on from a financial standpoint, and that's what I'm looking for. So I want to see it keep dropping, is what I'm looking for. Okay, the last one that we had was SQ. Same story, when the NQ gets bullish, a lot of times that's gonna take names with it. Uh, but this actually didn't give much of a move. I thought it was gonna be up more than 1% on the day, but you can see relatively weak name, minus 121, and it's still rejecting the levels. You still have a downtrend. You're still below the uptrend, and then you have another downtrend even after that. I think it's a name that you can just stay away. They have a lot of share dilution. They're still not profitable on a net income basis, and a lot of people talk about the Cash App, and I just think Venmo is just a lot better, and that's part of PayPal. I think PayPal is just further along than Square is, and when you add the share dilution in with it, I just think that you'll see this name at a much cheaper price. Or if you want, just wait for relative strength to give you an entry. I didn't think the earnings report was bad, and if I'm being honest. But yep, that's my take on Square, and I was up here when it was at 65 saying the same exact things. Stay away. Why? Because it was a weak name. These two names, I've had sticky notes on them, and SoFi. SoFi and Square, I've been saying, stay away. And just going off the sticky notes, probably saved anybody who looked at them, you know, square down 13, 12%. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be correct every time, but to me, this just looks like a short. That's my opinion. That doesn't mean that's how it's going to play out. So I will go over to some of these comments over here. I know Hal is going crazy. Shorts are going to need new shorts next month. Uh, Not if they keep working and they keep reloading the same ones, you know. I mean, Baba dropped down from 300 and it's still down under 100. So I mean, if it keeps working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's a saying that's out there for sure. Dividend, monthly dividend stocks to watch. Gain. We can go take a look at Gain. Gladstone Investment. Looks like they got a dividend coming up. Profitable. I don't know how much revenue growth they have. So about, you know, there is revenue growth, there is EPS growth. From a charting perspective, I'd say you're around that third point of contact, where it could be trying to build some sort of uptrend right here. I'd want to see how it acts with this previous low, which meets in right around a level that I would say, you know, could go over here. So 13 to 13.25. I would wait for it to work through that. Your relative strength is not in that oversold area, so it's not the worst, even though it's negative. You could catch a bid going into this dividend as well. Yeah, not the worst chart setup right there. I do like that third point of contact. The true breakout price for this name, I'd say right at a 14 flat area. It goes up, test it. So if it can get back over top of that, you get the gap down, fills the gap, so it doesn't have to worry about that. You retrace, builds a neckline, double bottom. You break this neckline, easy outs up at 14.50 for profit take, and maybe you get a better price after that. You got good. So this one I'd say just hold off on. You know, it does have a dividend coming up, but relatively weak. You're gonna have to fight through some downtrends right here. You know, maybe it catches a bid right through there. Uh, you know, if you can run it up to the top end of this downtrend, obviously that'd be a pretty good trade. But relative strength just not quite there yet, in my opinion. Now, obviously I haven't looked through any of the financials, but SLG, I'll keep moving along through this a little bit quicker. Set close to a nice higher low, and what I like about this higher low is this gap fill. So you have this gap, it gaps up before the dividend, and it retraces back and fills that on the money, and now it's trying to set a higher low. Relative strength acted like it wanted to break out for a positive break right here. Faked the longs out a little bit. Now I can also see a wave structure right here. So if this low holds up and holds this higher low, I'd say an early entry is if this gets over that 20, and I like when it meets up at a flat number like that. Uh, a 23 flat, if this can catch a bid, I think you'll have anybody short throughout this drop is going to cut the position, and also you're going to have longs jumping in. So that's where you get the volume increases, and then maybe it gives you a bull flag look, like a gap up, and then you can buy off of a gap or something like that. So I would say this SLG, not a half bad look. I'm actually just going to add that one to the watch list, and I'm going to keep an eye on that for a 23 break. Now, if you wanted to try and bottom pick, you know, it's aggressive because the closer it gets over to this low, the more it looks like a flat bottom break, where anybody looking to go short is looking for a breakdown where you got to go further to the left of your chart. My bad, headset went out. Where I'd say these lows that it made over here is around a 10 flat. You know, this, for all I know, this could continue dropping all the ways down to 10. I don't know what the dividend is for this company. You know, pretty high dividend. Does it pay it every month? It looks like it pays it every month too. Yeah, that's an interesting name. Um, but I'll keep going a little bit quicker. My bad. What name was I on right there? SLG, is that the one I added? Oh yeah, dude, this is the same name. Oh yeah, we're still talking about the same name. What's the next one that we got? PSEC. relatively weak. Same story. You do have a clear descending channel on this one. You can see the channel. Now you are on the bottom half of that channel, but that doesn't mean it's a good buy. I've made that mistake before where I tried buying this and then it gave me a fat gap down like 50 cents or 10%, and I was like, well, now I gotta cut it. Another part that I do see is you do have a nice double bottom, so if this is looked at as an extended right leg, here's a neckline. So here's your catalyst for a drop down to 525 already. Whereas if that's even looked at as a stop loss around 480, you could get even continued move down to 450. Whereas, at a 6, so let's say you buy it off the downtrend right here at the bottom end, still could be implied 23% move to the downside. So wait for your strength. That's going to be the saving grace for a lot of names. That it saved me quite a few times. Now, that doesn't mean that's the correct way to do it. There's no perfect way to invest, but that's what I'd say about that. Wait for your strength. That's going to be your best friend. GIPR. Now this one does have a nice little slope, and it looks like it's trying to build a flat top right here. Where I'd say wait for a true breakout over top of these highs. They did just pay their dividend on their earnings date. You're getting a nice gap up. So how does it act at this gap? And here's your clear out. Underneath 4 is a clear out. I wouldn't hold this against you because you do have a descending channel right here, where if it wants to continue following this channel, it's a slippery slope when you start bag holding. So it's something to be careful with. BRMK. BRMK. Now we're talking. See, relative strength holding plus 51. And what I like about this is you get the gap up, and now this looks like it was an earnings gap. Now you retrace down, it doesn't quite get there. So anybody who's saying, hey, I can short this back down to the earnings gap, now it's just been sitting in the middle right here. So if you're looking for a continuation, that breakout level is right at a 5 flat level, but it is also a gap. Oh, that does get filled. You see how that gets filled right on the money? I like this type of setup right here as well, because now when it gets there, anybody short off of this gap, if they're still holding it, as soon as it gets over top of that 5 flat level, anybody short off that gap is also out of the money. So it's also a catalyst for some sort of squeeze. In a sense, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, of course, but you do have a gap fill down here around a 450 level. So I would stay true to this. You do have a nice uptrend as well. So I'd be looking for a 5 flat break. Extensions. Now another part of this drop is I would be careful with that 702. You see, that's your first 702. 702 is deadly, and that just came in at a gap fill. So anybody who bought this retracement, that was a clear profit take in my book, at least. But yeah, not a half bad name. I'll actually add this one to the watch list right here. What else you got? Uh, OMH. Yes, I did peek over at this a few times. I didn't make any trades on it. But yeah, it was a crazy move that this made today. Uh, Now I can see I would have this marked, your previous high. It's what it rejects early in the day, and that's what holds as support. On a daily chart, to me, I don't have enough information, but this was a nice U shape. If I was looking for a potential extension, just not enough chart information in my book. Uh, will it come back and retrace back down to these levels? When it all gets said and done, I would be looking for a retracement back to this high. That doesn't mean that this is done running though. This was a lot of volume that came into this. What else you got? GSIT. Yeah, that one's in my shit list. Just don't like the name. That's why I didn't trade it today. Because when you're down here, you have the entry around 330, and you get stopped out on some bullshit. Literally the biggest bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Where you have a beautiful uptrend right here. Beautiful ascending channel. And you get stopped out when you have at 339, when you have a 335 stop in. Like that's the biggest baloney I've ever seen in my life. You can see up on the top left up here. I'm looking at the low, 339. And when my fill came in through my brokerage at 339, that was like, but yeah, if I was gonna trade it right here, gave you a late entry for a move. So it did give you a move at the end of the day. But I would have scalped it quick. What else you got? Land is another monthly dividend ticker. Land. Let's go take a look at land. Um, Potential flat bottom break. If it were to give up this price down here, I would be a little concerned. Got the dividend coming up, but just relatively weak at the moment. So I don't know enough about the financials in these names. I'd have to look closer into them, of course. But you do have a downtrend that you got to worry about. One part that I do like about this descending channel right here, though, is it is taking an awfully long time to get to the bottom end of this channel. So if this does want to break this downtrend, you could see it catch a bid as well. That is land. Now another part, if I actually think I'm going to go to a monthly chart on this one. What's interesting is you have a left leg, you build a neckline, you set a right bottom. Now you break that neckline, you retest it. So it's already showed that it can retest this once. Right there is what I'm looking at. And this does give you the move to the upside where that's a nice W pattern. If you're thinking back test of the neckline, I would have 13 or 14 marked, and this could probably even go over to right there. So I do like setups like this where this could be your buying window and a deep stop is probably underneath of this 10. So if I was going to draw this trade up and as a true back test of neckline, this is a deep stop. By all means, it is a deep stop. We're talking $14 down to 11, so you're risking $3. Now, if I was looking for a 1-to-1, 14 up to 17 is your 1-to-1, 14, and that just so happens to be your previous low. Keep that in mind. Your next one would be $20. Is my volume still going? God, I hate when my headset does that. And look at that. You're right up to resistance. You have previous tops right there. Now you're 3-to-1. Now I hope you would be good enough to respect all of these levels. Is 21, which gets over top of that previous low, so respect it. But if you're taking a $3 risk, 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, respect all of them. That's how I would play that. So yes, that is a decent little setup, and I think I'll keep that one on watch as well, and maybe just put an alert down near that 14 flat. Uh, um, there's always quiet behind storm, but I'm think more off the charts. SoFi 90 million shares traded today on lows. Laugh out loud can't. I say squeeze pending. Uh, you never know how much profit was taken off of. We can go back to SoFi and take a look at this. Did have 90 shares traded. Now, a lot of that volume is in these first three candles as well, where this first candle had 125 million in volume. Oh no, that's a daily. No, this is a daily, so this isn't just today. My bad. My bad. Let me correct myself. So when this goes bearish right here, one, into the earnings date, you get this positive break, right? So anybody who's punching long, thinking swing trade on this, if they're going with a true stop, they're stopping underneath of this low. Now this gives you a gap up, and this is the day where the true entry for the short, as it reclaims back negative and breaks the stop loss for the long, this is where the shorts are getting in. This is the golden entry on this day. Now you get the follow through, more opportunity to go short, but then here is your other opportunity to go short as it's retracing back to your previous lows right here. Now, you see how this candle gets to your previous lows. This is not very much volume, but shorts could easily get in right there. It's hard to see it. But then you get the follow through, and all it is profit take, profit take, profit take. And when you retrace, you don't know who's going to reload that short off a 5 flat. You just don't. So this is why it's just something that wait for your relative strength. When the day comes, the day will come. Now, for a short squeeze to come in my opinion, it would have to get over top of this previous high right here, which is also your previous lows. Because in my eyes, that is where the golden entry is. So as soon as you get back above that golden entry is where you see some of those the best longs or short squeeze come in, because the golden entry is no longer in the money. When this guy is now losing money, then the shorts need to be worried. That's my opinion on this. So until relative strength gets back stronger, yes, there was a lot of volume traded today. Yes, I believe the CEO bought some shares. I think he bought another million shares. And yes, it does have some good support down here. But all it would take is the right person to say, hey, this 5 flat looks juicy. And once this wick low gives up, anybody long off of this wick is now out of the money as well. So you got to worry about that. Where if this support gives up, you're setting fresh lows, and the shorts are making a bunch of money. When the shorts are making a bunch of money, they take profits, and who knows where they reload those. So that's why I just wait for relative strength. That's my take on that. $3 is great for upside, pays dividend. I'm not sure which one you're talking about there. Follow previous support further back in history. All I can say is short looking at this saying it looks juicy is just a victim I need. Yeah, it's possible. Uh, Long term, I just think that the share dilution also represents the chart that I'm looking at, where if we did even more technicals, I would say you do have a downtrend right in here. Now it does break above that a little bit on the earnings date, but hard sell off from that. So I would say respect this until it shows you different. Where if it is a descending channel like this, uh, who knows? Maybe shorts are holding, waiting for the further move down here, and it goes against them when it gets back over 575. I would just wait for the 575 or even a break of this downtrend if we're talking about SoFi. $3 risk on land is what I was talking about. Oh yeah, land. I added that one to the watch list. I think that the monthly chart says it a little better than the daily. Uh, Still relatively weak, but if we go over to the monthly, I love setups like this. I mean, you find any setup that has a nice W pattern like this and retrace back to the neckline, and you can already see it's wicking towards it as well. Now, your relative strength on the monthly did go negative, but looking more so at a weekly, weekly still weak, your daily still weak. I'd be interested at how it acts at this 14. Now, just because it gets down to 14 doesn't mean, oh, it's a buy. Back test the neckline. Doesn't fail. No, there's still outs. Like, if this were to, and even looking at this, I would say, you probably have an uptrend. If I just queried the drawing and said, if it trades down to this neckline off of this uptrend, it's not a half bad look. And I could show hundreds. But this was a brand new company that traded. You get this double bottom that comes in, left leg, double bottom. Now what's even more important about this, you get a full extension. Now what do we do after we get that full extension? You retraced all the ways back down to the neckline. Boom. Now this happens a lot quicker than what land did. But now look what happens now. You have a left leg, builds a neckline, double bottom, you get the extended right leg over top of this high. I was over here. The price was at $37. June 22nd. I made a video on it and everything. You can go back and watch it. I said, this will come back and retest this neckline. And now here we are. That doesn't mean that I'm a genius. That doesn't mean that was going to be correct. It didn't have to come back here, but we're getting very close. So the back test of the neckline theory just kind of saves you from buying up here near the tops as well. Now, obviously, fundamentals can take a life of their own as well. You said I'm trying to be a buyer at 581 on land. Are you talking about land with that one? At 581. Man, that's below the all-time low on that one. Oh, HPK? HPK. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't know enough about the financials. It looks like they do pay a small dividend. Uh, Profitable company. 581. Yeah, 581 down here. Yeah, that'd be nice to be the buyer on the back test of this neckline right here. Call it a 6 flat level. Uh, yeah, that was a golden entry right there. But just look at just look at the way that this trades. It IPOs, it sells off. You just put a simple retracement through that, you get the full extension. Now, when you get the full extension, you could say, hey, this is a nice W pattern, full extension. Let's put a trade down here near the back test of the neckline. And you run that back test of the neckline another 500%. And then you sell it there and you say, hey, there's another neckline right here. Let's save ourselves up here at the top 70% to the downside and reload it again. It's just like, man, that's crazy. You want to buy weakness, yeah. If you wanted to buy weakness, I would say, we've talked about banks before. I'm looking to, this is the name I'm looking to buy weakness on, because when it gets down to these mid 20s, it is going to be relatively weak, and I am going to pull the trigger on it. Bank of America, I think quarter after quarter, they're going to continue buying back shares. You know, and who knows? I don't know for sure if it's the best bank out there. Uh, but financial wise, their dividend is very safe. Their dividend is growing, and when they're returning value to shareholders like that, it's going to interest me. So, uh, Bank of America is at the top of your list. I'm selling my house and getting in. I was looking at Bank of America earlier today because I seen the NQ was strong. Now, that doesn't mean that the banks have, but this gap, the longer this gap keeps holding right here, the more I just want to punch in. But I think I will try it if it can get back over top of this uh, 2850. I'm just going to add a few more. Now, if I need to trim a little bit at 29 flat, I will. If I need to trim some at 29.76, I will. If I need to trim some at 30.55, I will. But the longer it holds this support right here, the more I'm going to say to myself, hey, I think that I can get in for some shares. Now, it could be early entry, your relative strength's a negative 83. I was thinking this was going to dip into this and kind of crack this support. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. Uh, so yeah, that is one that I am keeping on watch for weakness as well. I'm sure there's other names on here. Uh, Now I'm gonna go dip back over. Vips is also a trade that I'm sitting in, and let's see if I got my fill or not. And it did not give me the fill. I was sitting up here at 90s. That's too bad. But yeah, Vips was one of the sticky notes from last week. We got triggered in on 1550, held it against us a little bit. We were on the bid at 25s. Here's your 25.28, and here's your 15.25 right there. I didn't fall down and give me those fills, but I am on the ask at 1590s. And if you're looking more so at Vips, I'm just looking for a flat top break on this name. Uh, Coming into the earnings report, had some nice green volume. China names have been fairly strong, and I looked at this as pretty solid support level in here. I didn't pull the trigger. I held off on Friday, and I was able to get 1550s. I'm looking for a further continuation break of this. So that was another one that I traded today. You know what name how I had on watch was this Soul Hound trade. Relative strength 17. Actually, today is looking pretty juicy as well as you're getting that increase in volume after the earnings. I actually didn't look at the earnings, so I don't know, but it does have a nice neckline break here at 290. and it's holding a nice uptrend as well. So this was one that I had on watch today. I just never got to it. I just never got to it. I wish I did, because look at that uptrend right there. Sets a nice double bottom, breaks over top of these wicks right here. And now look at this, setting another double bottom, looking for more continuation. Uh, yeah, this SOUN is one that you can keep on watch for tomorrow. I think it's got a clear breakout level around around these tops over here. If it can get there, of course. But this could be early signs of some sort of channel as well, if it wants to. Normally when I see uptrends like this, I immediately think, hey, this could be some sort of channel. No, that's not really where the channel would be, but maybe, oh, that's asking for a lot right here. I don't know. There's probably not a channel on this. Maybe I'm begging. But I do think this is a juicy setup, positive on strength, getting the increasing volume after earnings. If it gets over top of this, I think it's a decent trade. Uh, ELOX Pharmaceuticals ripping at the end of the day. Yeah, it sure is ripping. Huge volume increase. Now, when I see multiple green candles like this, now that's a lot of increasing volume as well. One thing I'll do, I'll flip it over to an hourly. So whenever this wants to put that first red candle in, I'm looking at the next 3 red candles. Now this is the top. If the red candles are holding up near these areas, I'll just mark the top wicks of those hour candles. Now if a large red volume candle comes in, I'll probably stray away from it. But if it's decreased volume, 3-hour candles in a row, and it's trading near one of these levels, sometimes I'll pull the trigger on it. But obviously I wouldn't do that today. This would be more of a trade that I'd look at on uh, tomorrow's trading day. But I don't think that this move is even done, if I'm being completely honest. I think it's going to keep ripping. Maybe not. It's going to have to get over top of this. If we go back over to a 15-minute. Maybe a 30-minute will... Man, it's hard. Because I want to try and find 3 candles. I need to use a 4-hour or 2-hour. Yeah, so I'd need 3 2-hour candles to come in and meet in around this area. So I'd be interested 525 to 6. That's a wide range. Yeah, I might throw this one on watch for tomorrow. I might try it tomorrow. We'll see. Yeah, I should scope out. You're right. Man, this could easily be a building ascending channel right here. Very well could be. Man, imagine this up at 16. You got some resistance. I'd mark this low right there, which is what it tested over here. God, let me move that. Gosh, there we go. Yeah, I would say it's got, yeah, you're dead on that resistance at 1050. Has a gap at yeah, that could be a catalyst. 15, 18. I don't see the gap at 13. Has a gap to 13. Maybe you meant to say 15. 15.11. This is the gnarly gap right there that I got on watch. Yeah, it could be in the cards. I would say that's more so like that. I don't know if I would rely on that channel in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, if it wanted to go, holy buckets. There's a lot of volume coming in there. I'm at 15, my bad. Yeah. What else was there today? We can go look at the top gainers on the watch list. AI was a nice move. Look at that. This is why nice green move. Not the highest volume increase, but today's your positive break. 1, 2, 3, get the gap up, continuation. This could have been one that I had on radar. As soon as it gaps up like this, above this high, and that volume spikes above this bull, any volume candle on this move, that should have put it on radar. I never traded it. But you can see that first candle of the day. Just look at that volume that came in. Just crazy amount of volume that came in. One pullback red candle was all it needed. Yeah, that's a crazy move on AI. What else did we look at? This array trade was one that I tried on last Friday. I ended up getting stopped out of it. Rightfully so. That was the trend line. I was looking for continuation to the upside. Why was I looking for continuation? It was just a nice resistance level. I thought that it had a chance to just run after that. I was a day late. Just a day late. But no, my dogs need to get some food. You got any other tickers you want me to look at before I head out for the day? Take a look at the TQQ before we close. 29.15. Just hold it. If you got the entry, just hold it. That's a strong name right there. Nope, just gonna be chilling, look for money tomorrow. Yes, sir. That is correct. But I am gonna hold this TQ as it's holding this uptrend. We did have plenty of outs on this. I was thinking about a reload right in here simply because that was the open of today. Would have been a money fill, but I'm just holding the entry I got, and I'm just gonna let it go. If it wants to pull back into these levels, the uptrend right here we have drawn, I might try a little bit more. But yeah, that being said, I'm gonna call it there, and appreciate you for tuning in and everyone else who tuned in. And yeah, we'll see you same time tomorrow. Uh, See you later.